What's up everyone, Steve again from RCTNT. Now, you might have seen some videos of mine where I actually featured this Toyan 4-stroke single cylinder motor. I've actually converted them into like an old electric crawler, and I've put one of these guys in there, also done it to an electric 1/14 scale truck I do believe, and it turned out pretty cool. But this is what you get. Normally they come pre-assembled just like that, pretty cool. And I also have a V4 as well, but they all are manufactured by Toyan. But Toyan have a new product. You think, what's different about it? It's in a box, but it's a kit. You build it yourself. So if you're, tinkering and you'd like to actually see how things are made and put together, this kit will be probably perfect for you guys because it is pretty sweet. Now, if you want to check out this particular product, links are in the description down below. I'll give a better unboxing in a second, but I just want to show you, for example, what you get. Look how it's presented. Isn't that sweet? So you got different layers or shelves in here of the different products, and it's pretty cool. It's like a Lego set, as you can see. Got all these little plastic containers full of the parts and all labelled and everything you need to put it together correctly. A nice instruction manual, and yes, I have actually just done a little sneak peek when I got it because I was pretty pumped when I ordered it. But just check out this. I'll show you the rest in a second, but there's a piston. Look at that. There's a piston. It's actually got the little piston ring and everything around it, all pre-built, all put together for you, so you don't have to do everything in this particular kit. Why is it not focusing? Anyway, you get the idea. So everything is there. You got to put it together basically like a Lego set. So what I'll do is put all this back in the box. I'll show you how it is presented nicely. I'll put the camera up on the roof here. We'll get it facing down, and we'll do like a little build series, something a bit different. So all that is going to turn into one of these, pretty quickly, I imagine. Pretty sweet. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, links in the description. Want to go check it out. And if you haven't, please subscribe. Heaps of cool stuff, not just like this, but running videos, bashing, crashing, and experimenting with all different RCs, so hope you enjoy it. Alright, now let's get a nicer look of how it's actually presented in the box. Nice foam padding there, and obviously you're going to need an instruction manual, and I'm not going to be chucking this one out because I definitely will be needing this to put it together, because as you can see, it basically tells you everything that you have. Engine hood or engine cover, cylinder cap, needle valve, inlet, nozzle, starter motor. You get everything here. Crankcase, flywheel, everything is there. You can screenshot that or pause it if you want to read it all. But everything you need to make it just like this little brother here is in this kit, which is friggin' awesome. I love this stuff. So it gives you a list of parts. Really cool. Timing belt, camshaft, fan blades. It's a real little engine. I mean, it's pretty awesome. If anyone's into the engineering or just the fiddly stuff of this hobby, this would be perfect for you. You could leave it like that, run it on the stand, or do what I have done and put it in a car or try to make it fit. So the translation is going to be a little bit funny every now and then. So distribution diagram of parts packaging. So basically all the parts that you get in the package. Overall components: carburetor, starter motor, cartridge, receiver, main body component. So basically the head or the actual cylinder block, crankshaft component, muffler, cooling fan. Heaps of cool stuff. So basically it gives you instructions. So in step 1 you've got to put everything together, but we'll go through that step by step just so we can go through all the parts. But here we go. Pretty sweet. It's an instruction manual, gives you everything you need and how to start it and all that kind of good stuff. Next up, look like we have gaskets for the exhaust, tools that you need, different layer here. Back there, now check out this. They've all got their own little compartment in the foam blocks. It's pretty sweet. There we go there. So we get our bearings, starter motor pulley, flywheel, belts, little camshaft, different pulleys, parts for the carburetor here, different size bearings. Obviously one will be a one-way bearing, and your exhaust housing here. And this little guy here, from memory, it's the muffler. There you go there. There's your muffler. So that is that layer. Next up you have your little starter motor just here. Sweet. It's a brushless starter motor too. You get 2 little plastic containers here. One has all starter motor components, I think part of the cam, shaft and fan belt, or sorry, fan itself, because it actually needs to be put together with different blades. So there's the different blades, and what you end up with is that just there. RB crankshaft components, there's some cam, there lifters there, some little springs, everything that you need to complete it. So I do like how they're in its own little containers. You can put your spare parts in there, use them again. You can never have enough of those in the hobby. And this looks like the final, this is the final level here. What we can do is just lift the box up. That is your exhaust. Look at that nice little, I think it's a chamber there for the different pressures and stuff like that. Bottom of your block there, you can see what's where the crankshaft will sit into. Crankshaft. How nice is that? I'll bring it up to have a look at the actual machining and the quality of it, because a lot of people have this, or a lot of people are interested in it and might not know actually the machining and the quality of it. But there you go. Here's your sleeve for the cylinder. Here is the piston. Check out that little ring around it as well. So the gudgeon pin and the bearing and everything's already pressed in the bottom there. So that's very interesting. So that's a little machining on that. Nice quality, huh? On the side of the piston, connecting rod, the bearing and the actual ring is all installed, as you can see. But obviously take up the space. So give it some decent compression hopefully. So it's good to actually see these materials, or the actual inside of these, because I have two of these other ones already. I'm not too sure how they look, but now I do. I'll check out this. So that's obviously actually your head. The orange part is a cap that goes on top, so there's your head. You can see the two inlet, the exhaust and inlet valve. That's where you screw in your glow plug. So it obviously sits on top like that on the motor. This is obviously exposed. The cap goes on top, just like that. Pretty cool. So that's how that goes. But yeah, look at that. The springs are already installed in the valves there, so I don't need to worry about that. So that's cool. But just some nice machining there overall. And for the price of these, I'm pretty impressed with the actual quality of the parts as well. Pretty cool, eh? Okay, what else we have here? Oh, here's actual block, and obviously your sleeve will go in there like that. That is pretty cool. So you get 3 layers, structure manual, some tools, and I think we can start getting ready on the first step and get this bad boy going. That's what you're going to end up with. If you want to see these running, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Maybe put a little card up here so you can see it. But yeah, it's going to be the same thing. So I don't necessarily need to get it all running, but I'll definitely put it together and make it look like this. Okay, now I'm going to start step 1, and that is the assembly of the crankshaft, and that's this whole component here. So you're going to start making this, and what's good about it, if you're not too sure, you go to the parts that you need, and they're in this little plastic containers like I've seen before. And like I mentioned, it's got the crankshaft component, so you think, okay, cool, what do I need? All the parts are labelled just here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. So if I go back to here, I'm going to lay out all the parts that I need for component 1, which are obviously the crankshaft. That always helps. It's going to be for your starter motor. It's going to spin the crankshaft to connected to a pulley to the brushless starter motor. Your pulley that you need, the belt can wrap around that. Your flywheel. Obviously you need your piston. You need also a cap head screw, a washer and a nut, and they are here. So if you don't like this, guys, or this information, you can just fast forward on, I guess, because a lot of people like to see what's in here. So you need the washer, the nut and that screw, and it's all in there. But just got to make sure that you see everything. If you're not too sure, just double check on the parts you need. You can't forget your little key there. So you've got a key, that's very important, and a little grub screw there to lock everything away. So what I definitely might need for this, I'm not sure, I'm going to use red Loctite for anything that's spinning internally, because I'm not really going to open this back up again. So for example, this thread on the grub screw, I'm going to be putting a tiny little drop of red Loctite on there. You could have blue if you want, but just to be sure, I'm going to be doing red, and it's definitely not going to go anywhere. So I'll get all these parts laid out, and I'll see you in a bit. Right, let's get building. First, you need your crankshaft. Right there, beautiful piece, very nicely machined, And like I mentioned before, it's got two key slots, one just at the front there and this one up top. So this is the one that we're going to be using, but I'll show you that in a second. Let's get your flange bearing, slide it on the crankshaft just like that, and make sure it's seated nice and nice and tight against this face just here. And very importantly, always make sure that that O-ring is on there as well, and careful not to damage it because they are very, very thin. Next up we have our spacer that just slides on just like that. Another bearing, this is just traditional style bearing. It doesn't seem sealed, but it's just it goes internally in the motor as well. There we go. Next up, this spacer. Right, next up is this little key, and like I said just previously, you have two key slots. You have one here closer to the thread, and you have one on top which is further in the actual crankshaft as well. That's the one you want to use. So just make sure you kind of slide it in there. I'm just kind of look on the camera and on the viewfinder and do this at the same time. What we need to do is slide on this flywheel pulley, shiny side of the bearing facing the motor, the sealed section facing out. So just slide it all on, make sure everything is nice and tight, and that is it. Next up, you want to grab your huge heavy flywheel and spin it on the shaft just like this, so everything sits nice and flush. Now you can crank it all by hand, as you can see. It's done. Now you can see the one-way bearing, so I can spin it this direction, but not that way. Okay, next up you get your bolt, tighten that down. I'll do it all later. Off camera, nice and tight. A washer and a cap head screw. And obviously, if you want to run this in the car, you can put a clutch on the end here, so this can all come off later. But there we go. So as you can see, next up we have our piston already assembled, and it's got a bearing at the bottom there. Slide it on, pretty simple. Lastly, for this step, you get the front half of the crank assembly and you just slide it on there, and that is pretty much it. Now it locks itself away with the grub screw just here, but don't worry about too much about that now. It's fix that later on down the line. But there you go, there's your whole mechanism, and as you can see, it goes up and down, obviously I think about 10,000 RPM, just like that. Alright, that step's done. Let's move on to the next. One last look. How cool is that? Now part 2 is attaching the block together. You've got two separate halves here, and you've got to put it all together with the gasket that is supplied in one of those plastic bags just there, as you can see. There's a little groove or an indentation in the top there. Watch it, lining it all up, just like that, and then getting the other part of the block and just marrying it together. Now you need it's got 4 screws, and they are all cap head screws, as you can see. They're in the little plastic container that you get with the kit. Nothing too fancy here, lining everything up, screwing it down, and obviously you don't want to go cranking too much on one screw. Just with, same as any kind of car, or like a block, or even wheels on your car, you want to go in a crisscross pattern. If you try your best to torque it down even. There's no torque settings for these little guys, but just do a nice little star pattern or hex or whatever you want to do it, just so it's all nicely seated correctly. Now once those guys are all in, you have to put the actual sleeve in the block. Now it just says there's no actual key or anything for this sleeve. Just going to put it in there just like that, and that pretty much is step number 2. Now when I'm going on to step 3 here, I'll do all those off camera. I'll put a bit of red Loctite in there. Now step 3 here, it's kind of weird. In step 1 they told me to put all the actual connecting rod and piston together onto the main crankshaft, but now it's saying take it off and you've got to slide the piston down and all that kind of good stuff. So I'll get that all sorted. Now as you can see, this part is mating it to the bottom half of the engine block there, and it's saying when the piston connecting rod is loaded into the cylinder liner, the piston ring can easily be loaded by extruding the piston ring into place. That probably just means like pushing it together, like you can have those in the real cars. Obviously you slide it in the block, they kind of squash it together, so like a tube. It slides down, then you pull it out, and then it's in there nicely. So I'll try and do that right now. I'll get these all cranked down, put the 4 bolts in, make sure the gasket's seated correctly, and I'll go to this next step. Oh, okay, now block is all put together nice and firmly. Just make sure, like I said, you go in that particular pattern, because you want to tighten it down eventually so it doesn't warp anything or has a potential of warping it. But everything is locked and loaded, ready to go. Now I did this off camera because it was pretty hard to, I was getting trying to get it in the shot at the same time, but there is a piston. It is locked and loaded. All you need to do is kind of squeeze the edges of the, or squeeze the little piston ring while you're sliding and pushing at the same time into the actual sleeve here, or the barrel, and that is it. It's quite nice, and all you need to do now is just load it on into the actual block, just like that. Now it's a little bit tricky. You got the other half, the lower end just here. Now you're going to mate it all together. Now it says, get the lower half here, put it all, connect it all nicely up. Very nice tolerances too, very little tolerances, which is what you want for something that's spinning so bloody fast. Okay, now the cylinder is in the bore is in the block, and I've connected the crankshaft to the connecting rod, and everything is, as you can see, the front half, which has the pulley, is connected to the main bar at the back, and it's all spinning freely. Now once that's all in there, you need to kind of push it all down to make sure everything is center, and lock it away with this grub screw which is in there. Now I'm going to use red Loctite, and that's just going to connect it all together as one. So, you know, obviously make it sure that's all nice and straight and centered and in the middle, and just lock this guy off, and that's it, ready to go. Now we're ready to get the bottom half of the motor. Once that's all on, you can see, if you hold your finger on top of here, you can already hear it, bit of compression in there. So there we go, lock it away with 4 screws at the bottom. Now there's nice cap head ones, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we can start on the actual head. That's it. Pretty sweet. I like it. It's looking really good. What do you guys think? Alright, now the next step, we are going to assemble the head. So obviously you can see here, cute little cylinder head. It already has the springs and the inlet and exhaust valve all installed. But what we need to do, we'll go to this other plastic container where it says here cylinder cap components. Now you need, there's a camshaft there, got your rockers and your lifters and all that kind of good stuff in here. How cool is that? So everything is nicely labelled for you just here. So what I'll do, well, there's the main head bolts. There's 4 of those, obviously, to screw onto the head and other components. So that's a step right here. So I'll get all these parts laid out and ready to go. Okay, I got the parts laid out, and these are the rockets for the inlet and exhaust valves. And you have to make note, it's pretty hard to see on camera, but there's 2 different degrees. I think there's one at 40 degrees and one at 32 degrees, and it's hard to pick up on camera. But it says here the difference between the 2 rocker arms, number 30, which is the intake rocker arm, is 40 degrees. So just double check with that when you're putting them in. Now we have the guide here. Now we get all this sorted out. It's pretty hard to do all on camera, but this shaft where the rockers pivot on needs to be the thick side down. Now as you can see, I'm not too sure if you can see on camera, there's part of the bottom's a thicker bit of material there, and it's easily tells you here as well in the instructions. So like I said, it's a bit hard to show on the camera because everything is so small, but you'd lock the 2 rocker arms on there, snap it together with a little what are they called, a C-clip, and you're good to go. So I'll get that done and I'll make sure they're all sorted. It's also got to run through the cam shaft, as a run through the head, and attach 2 bearings on the other side and attach that with C-clips as well. So I'll get all that done, put it all together, and I'll show you how it looks, because it's a little bit hard to get it on camera. I want everything to be in focus as well. They have your 2 lifters here that sit on top of the inlet and exhaust valve. They just go one like that, one like that, and then we can get the rockers and place them on just like that. Now put the screw in there ready, just so I can line everything up a bit easier off camera. I had a quick wardrobe change. You see I'm wearing a jacket now. It's freezing here at the moment, but there we go. So that's it, locked in place. So when the camshaft spins through there, it's got the little lobes that lift them up and down That opens and closes the inlet and exhaust valve. Pretty sweet, eh? I love micro engineering. I think it's beautiful. Even if you don't use them, just to stare at them. I just had to show you. You got to push these two flange bearings in either side of the block, but so you got little cam lobes there, and watch. Intake and exhaust. See the little valves popping in, opening and closing? Pretty cool. Obviously when that's all spinning at however many 10,000 RPM or whatever, it's going to be nicely greased up. But you got your one flange bearing there and the other flange bearing there. You make sure they're pushed in nice and tight, just like that. Ready to go. Now you're going to lock it off as well. We've got a little pulley at the front, and it's very important about the timing. All timed up, we've got top dead center and everything like this. Check out this time. Rotate the camshaft to achieve no obvious sense of retardation. All parts cooperate smoothly with each other, so it means nothing binding up and all that kind of stuff. But here you go. Here, got to make sure that that first cam, one just there, is up and the mark is down on the pulley, and that is easily seen by that little dot just there. And it's also got to be locked off with a little shaft here, a little pin, so it locks it all together. Okay, the head is all complete. It looks really nice. Obviously, before you want to start the motor, you want to make sure it's full of grease and all that good stuff, but that's how it should look. Now we need to attach it to the main part of the engine itself, and you need to ensure one of the last steps is you put the little gasket on. Just kind of looks like a shim, but it's just a metal gasket. You want to put that on the motor, line everything up, just like so, just like that, and you're good to go. Now there are 4 head bolts for these cap head screws you want to put in there, and make sure when you tighten them down, you want to go in the crisscross pattern so you don't, potentially warp the head. I don't think you will on this one, but just in case. There we go. Nice. Doesn't have compression because you still haven't got the glow plug in there, but you get the idea. Nice. Next up, really easy task, attaching the exhaust. Now here's part of the exhaust manifold. Big screw there attaches to the side of the block. Another 2 screws here at the bottom, and also got the cover that obviously goes on the side. This nice gasket just like that. Now I'll attach it all off camera, but you get the idea, and it's all nicely labelled in here as well. Exhaust box components. Sweet, so we need those cap head screws, putting that together. It's got this little nipple here as well for the excess as well. And what's pretty cool about it is the exhaust tip. Looks cool. There you go. Nice little exhaust pea shooter there. But pretty cool. It's interesting design, isn't it? For the I'm not sure if it helps with the compression or just the tuning. Pretty sure something to do with the tuning, but I've seen some of these without these, and I'm not too sure how good they run, but I think it's pretty unique. It's a really nice machined channel, isn't it? Pretty cool. I'll put all that together. The final step for the exhaust, you've got to put the little pressure valve, it's like a little nipple, right into there, and you just screw it in with the tools that you get with the kit, just like that. And also, I forgot to mention, the one at the front of the motor didn't show, so I just loosened off by hand, and then you use the little tools here that you get, that little spanner, you tighten up just like that. So that one's here is for the oil drainage, that's for the pressure, and the last step is you get the cool little exhaust tip and you screw it in just like that. Exhaust is done, everything's looking cool. So the next step is you have to assemble the pulley system at the front of the motor. So I'll get all those parts ready. Pretty simple. You got like little guides, pulleys, and your fan you got to actually put together. So it looks like this guy just here. So as you can see, we're getting there, getting pretty close. Nice. Okay, now fan components, that is the assembly that we are doing now, and I pulled out some of the parts. So you got some guides, you got pulleys, and you also got this is where the actual fan blades attach, as you can see, and they just fit into these little slots just like that, and you got to make it all up. Pretty cool. Just make sure it's in the right direction. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fans to attach. I'll do that off camera, but as you can see, all the pulleys attached to the front of the motor. Now I'm going to use Loctite on this main screw, which is this guy right here, and that's the top pulley that runs into the motor, just up in that thread. Now it's important to note that on the manual it's a little part that extrudes out. One side's flush, one side's got like a little hump. And make sure that goes to the block side, just to give it that extra bit of clearance. So that's going to go there just like that. Screw it in. This shaft here, it's got 2 bearings. You get to press on. That runs through one where the fans are all attached, and that goes right there. Pretty sweet. Now what you're going to end up with is that. Pretty cool. And then the belt runs around it all. I like it. So I'm going to put it all together, and we should have this, but without the belts on. Okay, now we're ready to install all the components. The main part is, this is part number 83. This is the belt that you need to connect it all, and a very important part, you have to make sure the timing is correct. So this dot on the lower crankshaft here needs to be facing down, and this one on the camshaft needs to be facing, or the camshaft pulley needs to be facing down. So when it's down on the crankshaft, that means it's top dead center. So the piston is at the top of the stroke, so that has to be there, and this cam lobe has to be just touching the rocker. It says it all in the instructions, so that's very important, otherwise it won't function. You wrap the belt around, making sure that when you do, you don't jump any teeth just here. And everything is hunky-dory. Now, this other hole just here is where this guy's going to sit, just like that. And for the fan, to make sure you install it correctly, if you're looking at it front on, these are facing upwards, these little flicks. But that's it. So I'm going to just do that off camera because I need to be concentrating and looking at the motor, not at the viewfinder. But that's basically it. So when you wrap this around, make sure that these don't jump, because you can do that and you don't want the timing to be off. That's it. So wrap it around there. I'm going to put a bit of red Loctite on the end of this screw so nothing ever comes out, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, there we go, a bit of fiddling, but as you can see, the dot is at the bottom of the camshaft pulley, and so it is here. Once you move it all, it should move all in sync. Just double check everything is good to go, and that's it. There we go. Cool. Next step is carburetor, but it's getting there, so when you spin everything is nice. Make sure nothing's binding, nothing like that. Cam's spinning freely and the belt's not jumping off, and everything should be good to go. Okay, next up we are assembling the carburetor, and some of the parts are in this foam shelf, and the other parts will be, like always, in the nicely labelled box. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but if you're interested, check out the link as well, and there is also a coupon code as well, so you get a percentage off, which is excellent. Now here's all the parts that we need. Now you've got to take note, there are 5 different gaskets or spacers. You can see them here. These are different series. So you've got the plastic style, and you've got 3 traditional style gaskets as well. You've got 2 needles as well. You've got to make sure that the longer one, which is 19, you can see this one right here, goes on top. That's how you can adjust your settings for the carburetor as well. A lot of screws and several other parts as well. I'll show you here. It's pretty finicky. I'm not going to put it all together on camera, but what I'll do, I'll put it all together and then I'll show you the end result. But there we go there. Now, this is how it's going to be positioned on the real one that we're going to make. Exactly like that. Pretty simple stuff. So I'll get all that together, make sure I've got all the parts and everything put in. There's also like a little spacers, gaskets, some rings, and also throttle linkage there as well. So I'll put that together, I'll show you how it looks. And then, pretty easy part, put on the actual cover for the head. You got to make sure that you use the gasket. Okay, there is our carburetor all complete. Now, word of warning, ask me how I know. Make sure you attach the main body of the carburetor on, and then you attach the needle screw and the throttle linkage on the side, because you put these together and you can't actually access the 2 screws that hold it all on. So put the main body on with the 5 gaskets just there, and then you can attach everything else on. But that's it. You can fine-tune adjust these later when you if you want to get it running. But there you go. There's your opening. It's your idle adjustment and your fuel. There's your fuel inlet there as well. But everything is pretty cool. Ready to go. Next step, super easy. Gasket, and get your nice Toyan cover on there, just like that. Simple as that, but that's it. Simple step. Now, I'm not too sure if it goes any particular way. Got to make sure it's all lined up, obviously, and then you can just crank it down. There we go. Beautiful. 4 bolts. And then the next step is the last step for these instructions, because we don't actually have any of these parts. We don't have the actual electronics and all that kind of stuff to get it going, but we do have the starter motor, so we don't have the timing system and all that kind of cool stuff. But this video, I wanted to just get it to this particular state, as you saw in the beginning. So next step, which is the final step, is putting the little small brushless motor. Now that is tiny. Pretty cool, eh? So next step, I'll get parts 9 all out, which isn't too many. There's this part. There's a bracket, the pulley that goes in the start, front of the brushless motor that drives this belt, which in turn drives the starter pulley just here. Pretty cool. Right, I'll get that together, put on the head, and move on to that step. Okay, now the final step in our assembly for this awesome motor is attaching the starter motor. So it's going to look just like this. Starter motor on the side, and you have your pulley and your little belt there. That's all it is. So all up, I've already attached, there's a little bracket attached to the side of your brushless motor. You have a spacer here, just like that as well. That's going to give you that correct spacing that you need. But on the front, you need to put a little pulley on, just like that. It's got 2 grub screws on there, which is going to bite into either side of the flat part of the shaft there. Or even, yeah, there we go. Like you're attaching a spur gear or like a pinion to your motor. That's all it is. So I'll put that on there, attach this bracket to the side of the motor, and the good thing about it, you can see there that they're like wallowed out, so you can adjust the tension on the belt so you don't want it slipping off, because that can happen. It happened before with mine, but it's easy. You just good thing about it, you just tighten that, undo the bolt, move it up and down, and that is all she wrote. That's all it is. It's really simple. So I'll tighten these down, get that one in there, and yeah, there's not much to go on this kit. This is all there is to it. Slide that in. Yeah, see there's other 2 screw holes there on the other side of the motor. They are for, you know, when you want to attach it to a car like I have, or whatever. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Like I said, check in the description. There should be a coupon code, and you should be able to get this kit cheaper, a certain percentage off, which is always helps. Gotta love its discount. So we'll just leave it a bit loosey-goosey like that, as you can see. Now we need to get that belt on. So you can undo this. You can tighten all this up later. Kind of pull that off. Get the belt up to where you need it, roughly thereabouts. And then you can put on your pulley, because it can get a little bit difficult. You know, you think, oh, it's not that strong, but these belts, they are super tough. That's all it is to it. So now you get that tension, you know, not too tight but not too loose, so you want a bit of a spring in it. So that will just come off, it'll just spin, because once the motor has a bit of compression, you won't have enough tension on the teeth on that pulley to pull it. And that's all it is, see? So that's why it has a one-way bearing too, so it starts that once it's starting. So that can't spin, only spins one way, see? So we'll crank it over. Once it gets going, that's it. Pretty sweet. And that is pretty much it, guys. That is step 9. If you have the gasoline version, there's another step here, which is to do with the, I think the magnetic flywheel and all that kind of good stuff. But that is all for us. It's got a lot of information here. Once, if you do want to actually hook it up to a car, it tells you what plugs you need, what fuel that you recommend. I think I'm using 20% in my current one. Gives you all this kind of cool stuff about the timing and what to use up top, because like I said, this is technically a dry motor, has no oil in there, so not really oil but no grease, especially for the cams. So you need to always cam that up, oil up the cams or grease it up, and you know, got initial needle settings here, you know how much of a turn to run in and out, tells you how to trim up and what position is best for the carburetor there as well. So it gives you everything else, how to lean it out, how to richen it up, all that kind of good stuff. But I hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. S100AC. That is this guy. As you can tell, it's exactly the same This one here, the one on the left, is a little bit used and abused. I've used it in the truck that I have. If you haven't checked that video, go check it out. I'll leave the link in the description as well. I've also put one of these in a crawler. I've got a couple of these, and they are fantastic little motors. So let me know what you guys think about this motor. If you like the video, give it a good old thumbs up. If you haven't, please consider subscribing. Heaps of cool content. There's also got more of this coming up as well, more videos of these coming up as well. So hope you liked the video, guys. I really love these little motors. They're great little runners, and they sound sick when they're running. If you want to see a video of this one, I'll leave the link as well if you want. My initial startup and stuff, but I don't have all the other necessary, the parts necessary to get this guy running. I don't have the plugs. I don't have the little ignition system as well, but you've seen that before. This video was putting it together and just seeing the internal. So hope you like the video, guys. I really do. It's interesting. If you like it, that's great, but yeah, I just gotta love these small motors. So appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.